Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I am so excited because I have my amazing friend, Jenna Werner, with me today. She is also a registered dietitian and business owner of her own nutrition coaching company, which seems like it's growing, which I'm so excited to hear about. And she also has a really exciting news about a podcast coming out soon. So super excited for you guys to meet Jenna. Jenna, please introduce yourself, share who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
So wait, am I allowed to tell everybody that this is our second go around at this so that it's going to be that much better this time?
Yeah, you can tell them. So if you guys follow me on social, which I'm sure most of you do, you know that I had some serious computer issues about a month ago. And unfortunately, Jenna, and also, listen, I had some really great recordings that unfortunately had to we can't find them. We have literally no idea where they are. So we're here again, but I think that it happened for a reason.
Yes, that's my point.
We just came back from what looked like the most incredible, would you call it like a retreat?
For sure, yes.
Like an incredible retreat. So we're definitely going to talk about that, but I think everything happens for a reason. I do believe that.
I'm on my game today.
What?
I said I'm on my game today. I'm ready for this. Like for anyone listening right now, like Tony just gave me like a therapy session right before this. I've cried, I've laughed, I feel amazing, and I'm ready to share everything with you.
Yeah. January is a beautiful thing. So I will just say quickly, for dietitians, January is very stressful because we have all the people coming out for help, which is a beautiful thing. We want to help them, but at the same time, it's we believe in also helping ourselves, and the stress can get really, really up there. So I shared this on my story the other day, actually, but I'm trying to change my language. Instead of saying I have to do this, I'm saying I get to do this.
I love
and
that.
I think that comes from a place of gratitude, and you realize how fortunate am I to be so busy, to have so many things, to be running from A to B with opportunity. So I think that is, I didn't share that with you before we started recording, but I definitely think that might help you in this situation as well.
Heck yeah. And it's just so beautiful. And that goes back to a lot of what I learned on this trip as well. And the attitude of gratitude is 2020, just so everybody's aware. Yeah. But so backpedaling, my name is Jenna Werner. I'm so excited to be here. I've loved Tony forever. Our story or our journeys together goes back 6-7 years when we didn't actually know each other as well as we do now, but we've been in the same space at the same time for about that long. And Tony is one of two people who actually brought me into the mentorship that we were both previously a part of, and has changed my life. So I am forever grateful for you. But for those listening, I am a registered dietitian, nutrition coach. My Instagram and business is Happy, Strong, Healthy. And my tagline is not as cute as Tony's, but basically I like to say that I help people learn to eat right for the rest of their lives. And, Tony and I were just talking about there's the pulse of the nutrition world right now. There's a big political debate with where we are. And I think she and I have always had very similar views that we believe in helping people, and wherever that brings us in our work with our client is, person specific. But to put a label on what I do or a descriptor on what I do, I help specifically women who have been through that diet cycle and have tried it all and it's never, air quoted, worked for them. They've exercised and they're just pretty much for the most part not eating enough or not eating enough of the right things. I help them learn how to have the grilled chicken and also the donuts in the same world and have them all seamlessly fit together so that they can feel confident going on vacation, coming back from vacation, living their lives and feeling their best in their bodies. And that's probably a confusing way to say it, but essentially helping people break out of that diet cycle and really understanding what they need to feel good. And what I've learned learned from my own journey is that food can and should actually make us feel good, and it should be enjoyable, and it should also help us get to our goals, and it should also help us feel confident.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow these days because it's so all or nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know that not only can you talk to this professionally, but personally, you're someone who struggled with this. So, on this podcast, we go deep, we get vulnerable. I would love to hear your story of like what made you choose to go this route. And you do behavior-based coaching, which is I similarly do. And I'm curious, like, what brought you here?
So, and I love this question because it's funny. And so I do have a podcast coming out. It's called Drunk Dietitians with one of my girlfriends, Sam Previtt of Dietitians of Palm Valley. We're super excited about it. And on our first episode ever that is coming out soon, I really had an aha moment that was like, I never really considered myself of having not an eating disorder, no. Orthorexia, sure, which is that obsession with wellness, absolutely. But disordered eating path was not why I became a dietitian. So, when you're applying for your internship, I remember specifically my guide or my counselor or instructor, the teacher of that course saying, if you have an eating disorder, don't share that story in your essay because be different. A lot of dietitians shared that story. And I remember sitting in that classroom being like, I never had an eating disorder. So what am I going to talk about? That never dawned on me. And then as I started talking about how I abused laxatives or took all the diet pills or tried air quoting all the diets so that I could talk about why not to do them, air quoting again, right? I realized how disordered I was and how, my obsession with how I was supposed to look or what I was supposed to look like and how it looked so different than my cousins or my mom or, whoever in my life, my friends, I realized I was never body comfortable with myself. I was always the athlete. I was always stronger, no boobs, big butt, whatever it was. That wasn't cool back when I was in middle school. It's definitely cooler now, but it was not cool then. And I was never I never felt normal. And that's, again, air quoting, because what is that? It's not defined. But I realize now when I take a deep dive look at my past that I've never really been comfortable with myself. Mm-hmm. And that was highlighted, though, by a realization that when I took it to an extreme and I started, weightlifting and really intentionally trying to change my body to look different, I wanted to be shredded. And I got there. And I still hated myself. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that was not clear to me until very recently, having been out of that and now watched my body change again to find its healthy space where no, not all 6-pack of abs are showing, right. But it doesn't need to, right? And so I wasn't happy there. I wasn't happy when I weighed more. What was it that was going to make me happy? And it definitely wasn't my body. And so I've done the extremes on both sides. I've tried all the diets. I've done the restriction and I never lost weight. Then I committed to a change in exercise and became obsessed with exercise, obsessed that to a point where, I had no life. I was eating, so nobody thought I was unhealthy. I was eating a lot because to maintain muscle mass, you need to eat, right? But so nobody thought I had an issue. I was being celebrated for the way that I looked. It was oh my God, you look amazing. Tell me what to do. And I'm I'm just eating more. Okay. I'm also never leaving my house. I was never enjoying a date night or a drink or a restaurant or anything. But yeah, sure. Keep celebrating me. I was strong. I was fast. It was all of these things that I always thought I wanted. But I was always in that space, in that headspace. I was always searching for more. It was never enough. 6-pack wasn't enough. Make it 8. Keep going, be faster, run faster, whatever that was. And so that has brought me to a space of being able to talk about that experience of unsustainability and then the mental health aspect of change as well. And so, I know we're going to get to this too, but you can't judge a book by its cover ever. When I looked like that, I didn't get a period for months. on end. I'm talking to the point where my doctor told me I was going to have to go on new medication. My doctor told me that I had PCOS. I had all sorts of issues going on the inside. My skin was so broken out and my hair was so thin. But I just thought that was what my hair looked like, right? I never questioned it. I just blamed it on the fact that I had hair extensions and my hair never grew back after that. It was 10 years later. I just was so in denial that my health was being impacted by my choices. And so I think that because I can speak to that and because I can speak to the diet cycle of that not working and yielding a positive result too, my tagline is, learning to be balanced, which I know is a very hard thing to define. But to me, it means finding that balance of what really actually makes you happy, learning that, and then learning the connection to not being controlled by food and fitness or wellness in general. So that was a very long answer for you.
But there were so many things there. I could literally go from the beginning to the end. The first thing that you said that really resonated with me, and I'm sure with many people. It's just so interesting because I've interviewed so many people. I know so many people that they go through school, and so maybe they were overweight, and then they didn't feel like they fit in. For you, you were an athlete, and your body felt like it didn't fit in. We have a good friend, Jo. She's a registered dietitian, and she grew up super, super skinny, and she got made fun of her weight and never feeling like she fit in. So it doesn't really matter what size you are. Somehow we get, depending on the environment we grew up in, our experiences kind of really shape how we view ourselves. And I think that that's a really interesting point, and that it can be no matter what size you are, you still could have negative feelings towards your body.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that you said, which I find, it's funny. I was actually just talking about this at the workshop that I was at this weekend. There was a lot of people there that spoke about they're in the health and fitness industry. And they're at what point do we start to share with people? It's we want them to make a change. We want them to start, taking care of their bodies, losing body fat, gaining muscle, feeling confident. But at what point do we tell them, is it a bad marketing thing if we tell them, by the way, once you get there, you're not going to feel complete? Because that's the part that is we're trying to get them to take care of themselves. But at the same time, I once you get there, it's not as great as you think it is, because the journey, which I think is the lesson that we're both trying to get at, is the journey of loving your fitness and loving your food is what makes it all worth it. It's not the end game.
The end never is.
No, because you'll never really be done, right?
No.
Like you said, you got to a point where physically you had the six pack, but mentally you weren't there. And wellness, when we take a deeper look, is not just physical.
I remember having a conversation with someone once too at a gym, and she was at what she considered to be her goal, right? And she wasn't a client of mine, but she said to me, she was like, I just never really took into consideration what maintenance meant. And that always struck me, because it's nobody talked about that. I feel like you and I talk about that a lot. I know me personally, I talk to my clients about this concept all the time though, but nobody talks about the maintenance factor of you getting to a goal. So, okay, backtrack for me. How did I get that body that lost all that body fat, right? I worked out 4 hours a day, right? Legit 4 hours a day. And it was fun for me. I enjoyed it, air quoting. So it was fine. But then that didn't serve my lifestyle anymore, right? I got busy. I have a dog. I was going to say a family. He is my family. I have a dog. I have a husband. I have a home. I couldn't be working out 4 hours a day. And so sustainability wise, whatever you do to get to that goal, you have to be comfortable continuing to do that.
Right.
So that alone, not just the mental aspect and the eating aspect, but that alone, that change was enough for me to lose part of that quote unquote goal, right? So there's that. And then that mentally, and I know bodybuilders feel this a lot because you eat so much to maintain that muscle mass, right? Then you stop working out as much because you got to where you want to be. You lessen up a little bit, but you're still eating that same amount because you're hungry.
Right.
You're working out less, and then your body starts to change again. And then now these are habits that you can't break because they're routine. You enjoy it. you're happy eating that way, all of those things. And it's this like cycle of, then it starts to mess with, I almost said the F word. Am I allowed to say that on here?
I mean, it's not explicit. Not many people curse, but they're used to their stuff.
But it starts to mess with your brain, and it starts to mess with like, oh my God, like this wasn't here before, like pressing your stomach, or that wasn't there before. And do I like the way this looks? Oh my, like it's really mentally very difficult to really go through that transition. And so I think that maintenance phase of fitness is, and wellness in general, is something that needs to be better understood, that you can't just go extreme, just like a diet, and then expect to go back to your normal, right? It can't be all or nothing. You have to find the movement that you love and enjoy so that you keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people that things you do temporarily will only bring you temporary results. So whatever sort of results that you get, any effort you're putting forward and you get those results, you have to be comfortable continuously putting in that effort, which is why, you know, getting to the gym 3 to 4 days a week compared to 5 to 6 sometimes is a better plan for some people.
So true.
You know, it really, really depends on all your other responsibilities and what's important to you, and like define that first and then kind of work your way. And you can adjust and you can change. But going from 0 to 100 is never going to be something that you can keep up with.
You know, and somebody very close to me, and I'm sure she would want to remain anonymous, had a conversation with me very recently where she said like what her aha moment was she was like, I realized that I couldn't keep up with myself anymore. Mm-hmm. And like, I get the chills when I say that out loud because I love this human being so much. And like, just to hear her verbalize that was like so powerful for me, where it was like, that's literally like what it must feel like. And I felt the same way for myself, but you know, not being able to keep up with the precedent or the habits that you've put into place, like how draining is that on like your brain? And when you and I were just talking before we hit record, you know, we have a finite amount of energy every day, right? And when you expend all of that, like what do you have left to give the people that you love or the people around you? Like that's hard. How do you maintain relationships? And I think that a lot of maybe fitness professionals would say that they don't. Or
well, I mean, and
dieters.
That's sometimes where, listen, if this is your sport and this is your job and this is what you do, like,
very different.
Sometimes there is no balance. Like, I had Jordan Syed on the podcast, and I remember him saying that like he genuinely loves what he does. To him, his job, like he doesn't balance in that situation, like doesn't exist, right? But it's okay because it's important to him. He'd rather work than, you know, spend time with family and friends, which is fine, you know, like, you know, like if that's okay with him and he understands that in order to keep the success that he gets, he's going to get it. He gets that. Right. So I think it just really comes down to like what's most important to you. And like it's okay to have like a temporary, like you really want to go super hard just to see where your body can get to. Maybe you do want to just challenge yourself, but you have to also be okay with that when you stop doing that it is your weight might come back up, or your lifestyle might change, your relationships might change. And like, as long as you're okay with that, then it's fine. But if you're not okay with that, then you can't expect to get results when you're not putting in that same amount of effort.
So true. And what you said is so incredibly true, because I went into my phase of my journey saying, of course, I'll be fine with that. And I wasn't. And I think that that's something that it takes a high level of being honest with yourself and being honest about the way that you feel and, you know, the life that you want to live and what's most important to you. And if somebody said that, gave you those choices, you know, that's a personal choice. And that's like part of like another conversation we were having today. Like, I believe it's the woman's right to choose, but like the body, your client's right to choose, you know, what they want. And I want to help them understand the sustainability, the goals, the work that it will take, and the understanding. And what I believe more than anything in this nutrition world is that when the focus is on behaviors, and when you have a sturdy base of behaviors, you have your infrastructure of your behaviors built, the product that happens from that will be what your body really needs, right? So whether that's weight loss or weight gain or weight neutrality, maintenance phase, whatever that is, like that will happen naturally for you. And when my behaviors became a little bit more secure, and sustainable. My body gained weight, but you know what? I also got my period. I still enjoy exercising. My skin cleared up. My hair is the thickest it's ever been. You know, and now my brain has to catch up to that. Like, this is a healthy space for me. And I need to love myself here, because my body, right? My body loves myself here. And now I need to also. And so I've shared this a lot more now, but like, do I wake up every morning being like, I'm in love with myself? No. But like, it's okay, because I'm still on that journey. And that's why I can like help my clients and whoever wants to listen to understand that it takes time. But when it comes down to the sustainability and like the fun and finding what like literally lights your soul on fire, like that's a fun process too.
Definitely. And I think that's when you finally come full circle. I was talking to someone yesterday, and, you know, he grew up overweight, was teased, all that. And then when he lost weight, he lost it very rapidly. And then now you could almost define that he has like what I would call orthorexia. It's like not intentional, but he's like very, very thin and not fueling his body appropriately because he has fear of gaining that weight back. And the next goal for him and the step is going to be to get him to a place of finding that balance. So it's like he's been on both sides. Once he does that, whatever like his body comes to be at that place, that's when you can then know that you've come full circle. You've done the whole thing. You've learned everything. And then it becomes very clear that like, this is what I need to do to maintain not just my health and my happiness, but the relationships of those around me and all of those things. So I think we all go through it at some point. Some of us have higher highs and lower lows and all of that. But I think once you can get to a place where you focus on those behaviors, you're confident with your food choices, you have an idea of like what's important to you, and then you have your results. I think that's when we can flip that. That's when we know, okay, like you're on a good path. I think if you're every time you're like focusing on the end result over the behaviors, that tends to be where it's not always the greatest idea.
Right. And it can be that like obsession that I've had to work very hard to get myself out of it. Right. So like for me, exercise X amount of times per week was super important to me. And now, you know, those rest days, sometimes I love them. My body loves them, but they can still be mentally very difficult for me because I was coming from a place where I couldn't, like, there was a summer I remember, and I love the beach. My family has a house down there. And I remember like really, I had quit my job. You know, I didn't have a full-time job. My job is my computer. I could bring it anywhere, but I couldn't leave my routine. Right? I was too fearful of missing my normal programming, and I missed a lot of time with family. And that's stuff that I can't get back. Right? So one of my main priorities right now in helping people see is that the flexibility aspect, the ability to take your routine and your behaviors, again, like bring that back to that with you wherever you go, is the longevity of the process. Like that is the sustainability of the process of like, go on the vacation, book the vacation, don't go crazy, exercise while you're there, make it fun, right? Like bring some food with you that makes you feel good, and don't let anyone judge you for that, but also have the cake and the champagne or whatever it is, right? And it's like understanding how to really have it all is the only way that you can actually live your life. And, you know, yes, there's extremes on either side of this, but really what we should be saying is we help people find the middle.
Yeah. So true. Yeah.
Where they can find their happiness, right? And it's so hard, and it breaks my heart because I wish I had somebody talking me through that when I was in my darkest phases. But you're when you're not ready, you don't listen.
Very good point. Very, very good point. One thing I've spoken about is like patterns are hard to spot when you're in them. And so like you're just blind to the things that you like keep repeating the same cycle, the same pattern, but until you're out of it, you can't really see it.
It's so true. And then it's hindsight's always 2020, right? Yeah. So and that phrase becomes, as we age, becomes so much clearer. Yeah. Like my mom's been saying that for years, and I'd be like, I don't get it. But it's so true. It's just so true. And like, so to go to that retreat that I was on recently, so for me, if anyone listening, like you can clearly tell I've had an obsession with fitness, and I've been an athlete my whole life. Like I love exercise. I love that feeling. Like I really do. And I enjoy it. I can genuinely say I do. And it makes me feel like me. But to me, exercise is not yoga. Okay. Yoga is just not my jam. Like it's not the type of thing that I get excited for and like I want to go, but every time I leave I feel better. And so that's where my 2020 goal is to start like doing more of it, right? Yeah. But that being said, my husband is a yoga instructor and he loves it. And so he had planned to go on this retreat a year ago, and this was in December. And I said from the beginning, I'm not coming. You have fun. Like, enjoy it. Okay. And then in September, I remember asking him, and mind you, he booked this last December, but in September, I remember asking him, like, where is the retreat? He's like, it's in Costa Rica. And I was like, oh, I want to come. I was like, I'll just work. Like, can I just like stay in your room and like you do the retreat and I'll sit by the pool? And he was like, we'll talk about it. And I'm like, okay, but like count me in. I'm like, all right, book me a ticket. So long story short, as it gets closer, I'm like, I'll do the yoga, because it was yoga, surf, and meditation. And he was like, all right, why don't we just play it by ear? You'll say you're coming and we'll see what you do when you get there. And I had planned like big plans to do like a catch-up week. This was right before Christmas. Catch-up week with work, like just do all the paperwork that I hadn't done in forever. Long story short, I get there and I fell in love with the people, and everybody there had a story. Everybody there was recovering from something, and whatever they were recovering from, they were willing to share it. And on like our second night, our second meditative practice, yoga practice, we broke into small groups and we started sharing, and I cried. With a group of people I've never met before, 4 people. My husband was not in my group. And I started crying, talking about one of the things I was recovering from was my body image issues. And to me, to be able to verbalize that, I'm 32 years old. It's taken me 32 years to be able to say that out loud to somebody that I love, and nonetheless to somebody I've never met before. And to feel like the warmth from people and the understanding and the no judgment, and then from there to not exercise like power yoga, like that's the only thing that I wanted to do for like an entire week, but instead to do, I would call it like restorative practice, where Shavasana was like 25 minutes, right? Yeah. So we're laying down and we're meditating essentially, and we're listening to like verses from the Buddha, and we're, just listening to our breath and understanding stillness and things that are just so difficult for me, right? And to really just like let the thoughts come and like literally push them away, and whatever, just feeling your heart beating, feeling your stomach moving when you breathe. And like the instructor, his name is Rolf Gates, and he is he's sober, and he has a very strong past with yoga and overcoming different types of yoga. And he's now in this place where like what he would say is his practice, and he kept reminding us like your motion should be smooth and complete, and kind was the third word. And he basically instructed us to bring those words into our lives, right? Like, don't do things unless you can complete them. Don't do things unless you can do them gently. Don't do things if they're not kind to you.
It was that was really special. Please repeat that.
So smooth, complete, and kind. So don't engage in activities that you can't complete. Don't engage in practices that aren't smooth and transitional into your life, sustainable, and don't do things that are not kind to yourself. And understanding that you have choices, and every day we have choices to either engage or not engage in an activity or a thought or a breath or a workout or a meal or a friend thing that doesn't serve us or does, like we have choices. And so his message was so strong for me. And the other thing that he mentioned that like I cannot stop thinking about, and this is weeks ago now, is he made a comment that like it's easy to keep making a choice if you listen to your body echo after it's complete. So whether that's, you know, a meal that you had that doesn't feel good afterwards and you listen to the way that your body feels after eating, or a workout that when you leave, you're like, I am the queen and I feel amazing. And like, that's the echo that your body gets from it, right? He said, if you can listen to your body echo after every choice that you make, it's easier to continue to either make or not make those choices again. And that to me, just as far as we can like relate that to nutrition, is so powerful. And so it just reigns so true, because we do have choices. And when your choices are based on how you want to feel, and this is what I tell my clients, like you make a choice based on how you want to feel when it's over, it's easier to either make or not make that choice, to have that last drink or to have that second donut or to not. Right? Like that's your choice. Totally. And it should be based on how you want to feel. And so the week for me of being still, of barely sweating in a yoga class, of, you know, not working, changing my routine, doing all of these things was just more powerful than I could have ever imagined it to be. And so unexpectedly what I needed. It gave me so much perspective.
Yeah. If anything, that literally just represents what we were talking about before. You've come full circle.
Right.
You really have. That like tested it for you to show you like you really are, this is like you have the tools to keep this new way of life for you, both your body and your mind. I think that's really, really special.
And I hope everybody knows like it's not easy every day, but like we have to know that we can do it.
Well, so here's the thing. Obviously, it's easy to remember that when you're in an all-intensive week retreat where you're not in your day-to-day, right? But now you come back. It's very similar. And we were talking about this before. Everything going on with Jillian Michaels and The Biggest Loser, which we'll talk about. Like, those people go into these weight loss, like, camps. And basically, like, yeah, they're successful when they're there, but they're not taught the tools to translate it out and, like, when they have life to do, right? So that's very similar to what you're experiencing. Like you recognize like, okay, you have the tools and you're able, but you still have to practice it every day. You still just can't expect because you went on this week retreat that you automatically are going to be fine, right? You have to work on it daily. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really like appreciate your vulnerability and the honesty. And it's why I know that you have so many amazing clients that connect with you, and just really thank you so much.
No, I thank you for giving me the platform to say it and to share it and to like be vulnerable, because I think that's another thing. And like, I don't know if you've ever read this book, but the book, The Fuck It Diet. Oh, sorry. It's the title of the book, but the F It Diet, she opens in one of the chapters and she talks about, Caroline Dooner is her name. She talks about how as women specifically, we sometimes feel like we can't be emotional. Like we can't share what we feel because that's a sign of weakness, and we can't be weak because whatever. And I think I carried that with me unconsciously or subconsciously for a long time. And I think that like the ability to just show and share and to be able to tell people like, not only have I been where you are right now, I've been worse, right? Yeah. And like to say, and then here's why, and here's what I've learned. And I hope this inspires you to realize that like, it doesn't have to feel this way for you, right? Because it may be some situation they can't change, but it doesn't always have to feel that way for someone, right? And I think that, that's also a powerful tool. And that's why they call yoga and meditation a practice, because you have to do it, right? No, you have to do it for it to work.
It's so true. It's so, so true. Yeah. Okay. So because we spoke about it and we were talking a little bit before.
Let's go.
Let's just start with, so basically, Jillian Michaels is a fitness professional. She's a personal trainer. And she was on a TV show. So if you guys haven't watched it or seen it, I'm sure if you YouTube Jillian Michaels comment events, Lizzo. Yeah, I'm like, then it'll pop up. And to be honest, I haven't, because like, how I am with this stuff. It's like, when it comes to extreme debates, I like to keep it neutral. And so I try, but I have to like actually watch the full interview because I only saw like a sneak peek of it. But if you want to maybe just explain kind of like what was, how it went, just talk about that. And then we'll talk about like The Biggest Loser.
And I posted about it, and I literally prefaced it by saying I did a story on it first, and I prefaced it by saying I never do this because just like you, I don't want to have a stance, right? I don't want to have a stance in this world that's all or nothing when it comes to nutrition because I just don't, right? I want to help people become healthier and happier. Like that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But this debate really upset me because of my history. Mm-hmm. Because Jillian Michaels basically was interviewed and said the woman who was interviewing her started out by saying, isn't it amazing how confident Lizzo is in her body and how beautiful it is that she is sharing body positivity with a younger generation. And for those that maybe don't know Lizzo, she is considered to be overweight / obese. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she has amazing music about it. And she's an incredible performer. And to our knowledge, and this is how I interpreted it, to our knowledge, she does not have diabetes. She does not have cancer. She does not share that she has heart disease. And she does not share that she's interested in weight loss. She is healthy. She performs. She sings. She dances. She does all the things, right? Her lungs are working. This is what we know as people that don't know Lizzo, okay? Yeah. We know her music, we don't know her. Mm-hmm. And so Jillian Michaels said to this interviewer, I don't know why we're celebrating her for her body. And I'm going to like paraphrase it. She basically said, because it's not going to be awesome when she gets diabetes. Mm. And it was like, just like mic drop. Like, of course, Jillian, it will not be awesome when anybody gets diabetes, but that wasn't the question. Right. And so I think Jillian's response that she then wrote on Instagram was, there's comorbidities to heart disease, cancer, and diabetes that include being overweight. That's a fact. Sure. Yeah. But she said, and we shouldn't be celebrating this. We should be celebrating people like changing their health and blah, 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 whatever. However she wrote it, it was very black and white. And so here's the issue I had. The issue I had the most, besides her crassness or whatever that word is, besides how just negative it was and like putting down another woman when it wasn't asked, like that to me, like really hit me because it's 2020. We should be supporting each other. But the second piece is you can't judge a book by its cover because when I, again, had a 6-pack of abs, everybody was celebrating me for not being able to be a woman. I didn't get a period. That's not healthy, guys. Like that's an actual reproductive necessity.
Symptom.
Right. And so I wasn't getting a period. I had broken out skin that was not related to just my genetics. It was hormonal imbalance from not having enough fat on my body. Mm-hmm. And my hair was thinning because I didn't have enough fat in my system. Like I was not eating enough to sustain everything that my body needed. Right. So when I looked a way that Jillian kind of portrayed as to be like the picture of health in this conversation, I was the least healthy I've ever been. Mm-hmm. From a perspective of like medical internal health. Right. And so the argument is that, there's a health at every size argument and then there's a weight loss argument. And I think that I agree that you can be healthy at any size, right? You can. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. We don't have Lizzo's blood work, but there's also a health at every size movement that we're not going to get into. That's very different and it's extreme. Mm-hmm. But I believe that we just cannot look at her and say she's unhealthy. That's not fair.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I mean, this is not really off topic, it's similar, but I know a lot of people who are doing all of those things, but maybe their starting weight was like morbid obesity or obesity 3, and now they're at the overweight or obesity mark. So on the outside too, anybody who doesn't know them, they quote unquote would judge like, oh, this person, it may be unhealthy or maybe they don't exercise or whatever. And it's like, meanwhile, they're still in the process. Like they're still learning, they're still growing, they're doing all the things. And if they get to a place where their BMI is say 30, which is considered obesity, but they feel really, really good. Their blood work comes back good. Like that's an amazing thing. And we shouldn't discredit it just because they appear to be bigger than what the norm is, or because the BMI, which is a total ridiculous scale regardless. Anyways, but like,
so true
there, but like it's just, just to your point, is that like, you never know what that person is going through or is doing or anything. And not for nothing, there's also like a whole debate, like cholesterol is very much hereditary. And there's plenty of people.
I have high cholesterol.
Yeah, most people. Exactly. There you go. There's plenty of people that are at a healthy weight that also have high cholesterol. So it's just, there's just some genetic component, which actually when we're done recording, I'm so excited. I'm having, a really good friend of mine who's a scientist, and he's a geneticist and I can't say these words. Freaking brilliant. Like he's
a genius.
Genius. He's literally genius. So, and we're going to, I already know I'm talking about him. Like we talk about like genetics and how like even people with diabetes, some have like are sensitive to different foods than others. And like some can have carbs and some can't. And like, there's really no way of saying like what your body needs and how food's going to affect your body other than you personally taking care of it and figuring it out on your own. So
it's so crazy. And we put all of these like rules out there and like recommendations in air quotes and all of these things. It's just, it's a crazy time to be in our field.
It really, really is. It really, really is. Just because a matter of time, we have a couple minutes, but just because we're on the topic, I'm sure people are thinking about like, so Jillian Michaels was also a personal trainer for The Biggest Loser, which is a show on, and I believe it's on NBC, where people who are
which is coming back, by the way, which is very upsetting. Sorry,
very upsetting. So basically these people are on that really high, like morbid obesity range, like close to needing bariatric surgery, but instead they go to these camps and they get the opportunity to lose weight, and they get the faster their weight. It's not even by fat loss. It's by weight on the scale in pounds. And it's so extreme that they get celebrated by the fastest that they lose the weight and the amount that they lose.
And they get money.
And to win money, right? And they are exercising for like 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Their diets are so limited. They're basically just reaching, I think, their basal metabolic rate. Like, so
they're at fat camp. Like essentially
starved. They're being starved and they're forced to exercise, and then they go back into the real world. And then what happens? Tell everybody.
I Googled it.
I'm doing this for you, but they keep doing it, which is so sad.
So I like to be well researched as well. And before posting my little rant, I went ahead and Googled, because what we've just talked about for an hour is how we believe in behavioral change, right? We believe in sustainability. We believe in instilling behaviors on people that they can continue. So you think about that, and then you think about Biggest Loser, they're learning nothing. Everything is being controlled and they're forced to be somewhere and they're being incentivized by money. Great incentive, but they're not learning anything, right? So I Googled, where are the Biggest Loser winners now? And you can see on YouTube hundreds of videos of these people talking about how they're at their biggest weight, their heaviest they've ever been. They gained all their weight back as soon as they left the show. One story was like, my first meal after leaving The Biggest Loser was 16 cheeseburgers and all these fries and like all this stuff. And it was like, he never went back to eating any of the foods that he ate in The Biggest Loser camp because he then had a taste of what he missed. And then he kept going and gained all his weight back. And now he's struggling. And what I talk about a lot, I recently did a different podcast where I talk about how like when you've had the extreme and you go so far away from what you know to be good for you and you try and scrape back to like your page one, right? You never get there. Page one becomes so much harder. And then because it becomes harder, we get discouraged. And then that hurts more. And then we take it to the extreme in the other direction. And so these people have reverted to now past what we considered their obesity on day one of The Biggest Loser, and now they're trying so hard to get back to just what they were.
And why can't they? Tell them why they can't.
What would they learn? No behaviors.
No, but not just that. So not only
extreme,
but not only that, but like so what happens? It's called like basically their basal metabolic rate.
Yes,
was their body still thinks that they're at that low weight. So like if someone who's say, let's just use 200 pounds needs, and these are very generic guys, don't pay attention to these.
These are
200 pounds need 2,000 calories to lose weight, to be in a deficit. You now get to 150 calories. Now, if you want to lose more weight, 2,000 calories isn't going to help you continue to lose weight. You're going to have to decrease it to maybe 1,500 calories, right? Now you get to, say, your goal weight. But in order to sustain that, you're going to have to decrease your calories again. What ends up happening when someone then goes back to that high weight, so they lose all this weight and then they go back, their metabolism still thinks that they're at their goal weight. So their metabolism still registers that they need, say, 1,200 or 1,500 calories, but they're this bigger person. So that's where they end up gaining the weight and some. So that's
metabolic adaptation.
It's called, exactly. It's called metabolic adaptation. And I don't know if I've ever did a podcast. I think I've mentioned it, but I don't think I've ever done like a podcast about, I think I need to title it metabolic
education on metabolic adaptation.
But yeah, so like it's also obviously it's sustainability and behavioral based and your actions and all that, but you're actually changing your physiology. Like you're changing what your body's able to do on its own without you having to put any effort forward. So it's like that's the really big issue, I think. It's like genuinely damaging your metabolism.
Which people are like, they've taken that so far out of context now, right? Like, oh, I just have a slow metabolism. Like, no, you've just dieted your whole life and your metabolism is confused, right? Mm-hmm. Like I always tell my clients, and free advice for everyone out there, like you need time for your body to trust you, right? If you've messed up your metabolism in the past, you've done all these diets, you've done the extremes, and now you want to do this once and for all, you want to get healthier, you want to commit to this change, you need to allow your body, this beautiful piece of art that you breathe inside every day, you need to give it time to get back to normal and to get to a place of trust. Mm-hmm. And that requires eating, and it requires moving in a gentle way and in a consistent way. And it requires time to get yourself to a homeostatic place where everything's working. You poop every day. You're a woman, you get your period, your hair is healthy, your skin is healthy, you are feeling good, you don't go to bed feeling super bloated, you don't wake up feeling super bloated, everything's working, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can make the change. Cool. But so that's where it hurts my heart when people are like, yeah, I'll work with you for a month. Like, no. Like,
yeah.
No, not happening.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I know, you have your clients usually stick with you for like 6 to 9 months, right?
Right now the commitment is 5. So you have to commit to a minimum of 5. And then typically my clients range from anywhere from 6 to 9 is what they stay. But they go into it knowing now that I'm stuck with this girl for 5 months.
Yeah. Well, no, honestly, when I made that shift in my business as well, and I know when I did that, like you definitely get less applications. You definitely get less people ready to commit. It's more scary. It's more fearful, but it's different than what they've done in the past. So I can confidently be like, no, this is what you need.
Yes.
And rather feel like I'm doing them a disservice because you and I are not like all the other stuff out there. It's very different. Like, and I really hate to say this because it sounds so salesy, but like anyone who's ever done my program has been successful. So like I don't guarantee results, but it's because they've committed to a minimum of 6 months. Because what do? We both focus on behaviors. And when you focus on your behavior, it's really hard to change. Habits are so hard to change. Now imagine when you have good habits. Because like even if you want to try, like I know like my clients, like even if they, we're all human beings, right? So like if we go off a little bit, they go off a little bit. And maybe they drink a little bit more or they eat something more than they wanted to or whatever. Like, it doesn't take them a week to get back on track. Like, the next day, they're just like, I don't know why I did that, but I'm back in the zone. Like, you, like, just start to pick up the habit of just, like, constantly, like, being aware of your body and making changes and adjusting.
Being a human.
Yeah. Totally.
So good. Oh, what a great place to end that, right? Like,
yeah, this is so good. Okay.
That brought that full circle.
Okay, so tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, yay. Well, first of all, this was so fun. I love you. But you guys can find me mostly on Instagram at happystronghealthy.rd is me. www.happystronghealthyrd.com, which is being updated in February. So give me a little time to make it pretty. And then
I'll put your Instagram link in the show notes then.
Perfect. And my email is jenna@happystronghealthyrd.com. I'd love to answer any questions if you have them. Tony, I love you forever. Thank you for having me. I think part 2 definitely was the way to go.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. Anyways, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Tony podcast, please subscribe. A new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. So when you're subscribed, you don't miss a beat. And also, Jenna, your podcast is going to come out when?
Probably March 2020.
Okay. So
yes,
probably it's in like a week or so. So
yay!
Yeah, we're in about a month, guys. Take a look.
Sneak peek.
Drunk Dietitians. That's what it is. Love it.
You can follow us on Instagram too.
Yes, I love it so much. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. As always, I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.